Welcome to RSAC Conference 2025. We're here recording live from the CyberRisk TV studio and Broadcast Alley at Moscone West. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me for this interview is Derek Manky, Chief Security Strategist and Global VP Threat Intelligence, Fortinet's FortiGuard Labs at Fortinet.
You nailed it.
Welcome, Derek. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you? Good to see you again.
I always look forward to our conversation, so I was excited to see that I'd have an opportunity to chat with you about the latest report. And we've been getting a lot of reports lately, yes. And it's very interesting. It seems like everybody's pretty much on the same page, except one vendor I won't mention. They put out a video this morning, and it was almost exactly the opposite of everything we saw in Verizon's DBIR report. So I don't know what happened there. They must have different sample data, right? Like everybody's got different data sets that they're looking at.
Yep.
But yeah, kicking things off here. One of the things, you put these out twice a year still, right?
This is an annual, so we took a bit of a different focus this time. Actually, we refactored the approach quite a bit.
Okay.
So it's an annual view and scope. And we also broke this down from an attacker's point of view. So we went through the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So each phase of that, what is FortiGuard Labs seeing? So we sort of framed it into the life cycle of an attacker and trends around that.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. And, one of the things I'm always interested in, because you're looking at a lot of this on a day-to-day perspective, but then you put together these reports. Are there ever surprises when you put together the report, or you already pretty much know what the report's going to look like before you put it together?
It's a mix, I would say. There's things that are not surprises. There's baselines we have, of course, so there's things that I fully expect. Like sort of that holding the line approach, because we do talk about this obviously throughout the year. So there's things that are not surprises, but inevitably we do find something that would be a little bit anomalous, right? Above that baseline too. Yeah.
And what are some of the high points, some of the things that because we have seen some trends shift. I don't think everything is just up and to the right anymore. There have been some shifts in behavior.
Yep.
So maybe hit me with some of the high level ones, and maybe we can dive deep into some of those.
Sure. Yeah. If we look at the so a couple of things, right? I think the speed at which we're seeing the shift left. So we talk about shifting left a lot. Yeah. So more of the reconnaissance phase. We've talked about it. It's been more tactical with ransomware and things like that in the past. If you look at the report, there's been a lot of activity and focus on that. One of our lead points was just on that external attack surface management from an attacker's point of view.
Right.
So scanning, we see on average 36,000 scans per second. It was an 18% increase from last year, which is a clear indication of more of a focus on finding, mapping that surface, and then ultimately weaponizing it as well too. So that was a surprise, because I wouldn't expect to see it that big. The other surprise, quite frankly, was on the weaponization. So second phase, we talk about vulnerabilities in 0 days all the time. There were 39% increase in CVEs. So that's in the industry. 40,000 last year. That was a surprise to me as well, honestly. I knew it was going to be bigger. We're tracking usually a 5% growth metric, but almost 40%, that's an explosion. So that was very surprising. But what we saw in the report was it's not all doom and gloom either, in a sense that, yes, that's a lot of CVEs out there. But at the same time, we saw only around 300 out of those 40,000 0 days weaponized.
Yeah.
So it's encouraged. Like, the trend is less on the 0 days, but the bad news is more of a shift into living off the land techniques.
And I imagine this stuff connects, right? Like the 300 out of that 40,000 you're seeing. I imagine there's a reason the scans are going on all the time, right? Like a lot of these are edge devices.
Yep.
And the moment somebody sees it, there's a script that's just going to grab that initial access, right? That's going to exploit that, whatever it is, a VPN device, externally exposed management interface. Why do people still do that? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's very much an end day game, not a 0 day game. That was a takeaway from the report. Automation, as you said, like with the scanning. And that's the other thing that we saw in the report. So it's interesting, Adrian, because we walked through, as I said, the MITRE ATT&CK framework. We're seeing that framework, the tactics being chained together now. So multi-stage attacks. The cloud, for the first time in this report, we had CNAP and cloud data, and it's the same thing in the cloud that we're seeing too.
Yeah. And it's, as attackers automate more, I imagine that's where we got to go as defenders as well, right?
Yep.
So you were talking about speed, and when you said that, the first thing I think about is how fast do we need to move?
Yeah.
Like when, and that's another metric I've been seeing from a lot of these reports is, some idea of here's when you can expect exploitation when this vulnerability is disclosed.
Yeah.
And it's, that timetable is getting super short.
It is.
It seems like you cannot wait on vulnerability scan results to start acting on something.
And you're absolutely right. So we call it the TTE, the time to exploit, and that metric is now in the days. We're continuing to see big campaigns that are weaponized, not just from one attacker, but multiple attackers within that week. Typically less than 6 days. So, and it's not just about the speed of weaponizing vulnerabilities, it's that whole attack chain, right? So the exploitation of the vulnerability is one thing, but now we're seeing I'm actually speaking on Thursday this week about an AI-enabled cybercrime. So we are seeing weaponization of AI to act as a catalyst to speed that whole chain up, right? To get credentials quicker through things like tools like Fraud GPT, Worm GPT, which don't have ethical restrictions like ChatGPT does. Right, so all of those things combined, the tooling is allowing not just the weaponization of end days of vulnerabilities, but that whole chain, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting, seeing some of the other shifts in what's being targeted. It looks like, it's been somewhat a slow trend. Like there's many ways to trigger a ransomware request.
Yep.
It started with encryption of data, and then we saw theft of data.
Yep.
And it seems like it's been shifting towards impacting operations.
Yes.
And so this is all leading to my guess that targeting specific industries is maybe going after industries where you can exert more pressure by impacting operations.
Yeah, so that's the tactical shift. It's a funnel, right? So what do I mean by funnel? It's always the inverse of the NOC and the SOC of what we're doing in security, right? So from their point of view, they're doing attack surface management. They're they're scanning that attack surface. They're sending out billions of scans. We saw almost 1 trillion, actually. It's 993 billion that we saw last year. And then they're funneling that into what's the interesting target that I can use for, so they're applying their own intelligence to that, right? To find those targets that contextualize into big targets, big revenue organizations and specifically manufacturing. That was for the second year in a row. So that wasn't a surprise to me, but it's holding steady. 17% of all verticals we saw was manufacturing for ransom attacks because it's business continuity and operations.
And it makes sense. I'm hearing that ransomware events are still numerous. Like we're not seeing a big drop there, but we are seeing a drop in the number of people paying. So I guess it makes sense to put more pressure on the people most likely to pay, right? Where it's really going to hit them immediately.
Yeah, exactly. And it is those large scale operations. And as I said, it's not just manufacturing. We're seeing also healthcare. We're seeing retail, right? Those are the other top targets we see too.
Oh yeah. Human health, absolutely. Yeah. Like that's almost industries where it almost looks irresponsible not to do whatever you can to get back up and running as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And that's it seems like that continues to be an ethical quandary. Like there are people out there that even talking about regulations and laws that make it illegal to pay a ransom. Or at least we do have some stuff now where you have to notify if you pay one. But having some empathy here, you see so many cases where I can't fault them for trying to get back up and running as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a fine line, and that's why it's so important to try to, we talk about in the CISO world risk mitigation all the time, but that's why it's so important to take, just like the attackers are shifting more left, being more proactive, right? We've talked about proactive security, but that whole landscape has changed now too, right? It's not just about theoretical situations or scenarios, or your typical phishing employees, you know, to get their security awareness and hygiene better.
We've got all this data now. That's something I've been saying until I'm blue in the face, is we don't have to guess anymore.
No.
Like our best practices used to be based on guess. Like changing passwords every 90 days seems like a good idea.
Right.
You know, we learn different, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like we're in a place now, partially due to ransomware activities being so successful, that we have some really good ideas of what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. And it's proven too. I mean, obviously now we have, think of something like zero trust. That was a concept, you know, five plus years ago. Now it's a reality. There are real solutions.
We're seeing successes.
And it works. It works. It's in the name, right?
Yeah, right.
And that combined with CTEM now and continuous threat exposure management. So breach and attack simulation, because we know the playbook of the attacker, simulating real world attacks. We don't have to just do tabletop exercises. You can launch us against networks, see how your security posture is, so it's a threat-informed defense approach, and then build security around that.
See where the gaps are. Earlier I was talking about you can't wait until the scan tells you that you've got a vulnerability, and we were talking about the time to exploitation. And you know, this is something I often talk about, are scan-led approaches, which is fine for compliance, for PCI, for stuff like that, and intel-led approaches.
Right.
And you know, I imagine that goes for more than just vulnerability intelligence, but threat intelligence in general.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you can probably guess, I'm a big fan of the intelligence-led approach. I mean, leading our intelligence department at Fortinet, FortiGuard Labs. But yeah, that's the approach we take. I mean, look, you can have great detections and intelligence, but if it's not actionable, it's just intelligence sitting there. You can have a great platform without intelligence, and it's bare metal. It's unable to act on that. So you absolutely need that converged intelligence approach. That's where the world of agentic AI, you hear a lot about that now, especially at this conference, but there's real implementations of that, of being able to act on not generative AI, but discriminative AI, to have localized learning to speed up the autonomous response. There are implementations happening like that. We've done it in our security fabric as well.
So again, automation, you know, as attacks get quicker, we can't move at human speed anymore.
No, and you can't.
We got to find ways to automate.
Yeah, and you can't hire your way out of the problem, because there's a skills gap, by the way. It's just going to bloat your OpEx. So using technology like that, it upskills the analysts, it offloads workload that an analyst would otherwise have to do. It avoids analyst burnout, which is a real issue today. So there's a lot of benefits to it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like the most about this AI trend in general, is it does seem like it can erase some of the stuff that humans hate to do. Your eyes gloss over, you know, you start making mistakes. And I really hope to see it addressing a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's like any new technology, when it kind of comes into full force, there's a lot of speculation, there's uncertainty, there's some fear sometimes. Is this going to replace my job? But it's not the reality, right? The reality is we're seeing a lot of success where it's actually, like I said, upskilling analysts. There's a warm reception to it. Yes, exactly.
So you have a CISO playbook in here. So I haven't been able to dig into that yet. So tell me a little bit about your reports. Always have great takeaways, recommendations, stuff like that. Tell me about the playbook. Yeah,
so the playbook is, it's really talking about a continuous approach, right? Because we live in the world of AI automation, we can do things at speed and scale, and that's important from a security posture. So it's not a once a year penetration test. Did you check all the boxes? Okay, I'm secure for another year. Because the attackers are moving so fast, that doesn't sit well in the CISO playbook today. So in the CISO playbook, we talk about CTEM, continuous threat exposure management. Really, I think we've talked about the work we've done with MITRE before, the Center for Threat-Informed Defense. Threat-informed defense is the same idea, right? So CTEM just takes threat-informed defense and it puts it into a continuous cycle. So it's doing the attack surface management, EASM, external attack surface management. This is all in the CISO playbook. So you know, via dark web, are people targeting your brand? Is there a phishing site impersonating you? Are stolen credentials being sold? Those sorts of things, that alerts can be proactively generated. Same thing with IASM, the internal attack surface management. That's the vulnerabilities and exposures and so forth. those sorts of things. So the pen test angle is important, but then there's also the purple teaming element. So this is using adversarial exposure validation. It's breach and attack simulation, running those real world attacks, and then seeing what your security posture is from that. So in the playbook, it's really about running those purple teaming exercises with gear, of course. This is gear to support that, doing it at speed and scale continuously. So it's not just one adversary, you're continuing to build those playbooks, run that intelligence-led approach. So that's a key part we talk about. It's the refactored continuous security posture built around intelligence and the adversary that we know.
And I think that's the biggest thing I see missing are these feedback loops. Where, sure, maybe it's logged somewhere in your system, but that doesn't count if a human doesn't see it and act upon it. Or if, maybe in the future it is more machines seeing it and acting upon it. But anybody can just turn all logging up to 11 and say that they detected an attack, but doesn't count if you can't use it.
And so this is the other element of the CISO playbook is the AI piece, of course. But I just want to stress it's not just the generative AI and the large language models. So, if you look at the way we've implemented AI, we have it the agentic AI piece, which is sitting on premises. It's on the endpoint, it's in the cloud, it's on the networked NDR device and so forth. It's in the SOAR as well. But then you have the generative AI, we call it FortiAI, which is that large language model interface to the analyst. So those engines are doing the heavy lift, the stuff that an analyst would have to do to find, you don't have to turn the logging up to 11, it can find those logs. But then it uplifts that intelligence into the large language models so that they can have that natural conversation with the analyst. It helps NOC and SOC convergence with that. So it's that, I look at generative AI as in the CISO playbook as that single pane of glass into all the operations between the NOC and the SOC happening.
More easy to use interface. Hopefully people need less training to figure out how to use.
Exactly. The on-ramp is less as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Derek. Always a fun conversation with you. Always enjoy reading the reports. Looking forward to what comes next.
I'm looking forward to our next conversation. There's good progress being made.
To find out more about Fortinet, you can visit securityweekly.com/Fortinet RSAC. For all RSAC 2025 coverage by Cyber Risk Alliance, you can visit securityweekly.com/RSAC. Thanks again, Derek. And stick around. We'll be back. This is just the second interview of the day. We'll be back after the break with more interviews live from RSAC Conference 2025.